In this video, we're gonna delve into the summary of the atomic habits that are written by James Clear provides comprehensive and detailed explorations of how small and incremental changes in the daily life behavior can lead to the profound and the lasting improvements in our lives. The central thesis of this book is that success does not arise from single and dramatic overhaul but from the cumulative effect of tiny, consistent improvements, often as small as 1% better each day. Over time, these tiny changes multiply, leading to the remarkable transformations, while the opposite is also true. The small negative habits or neglect can compound into significant setbacks. James Clear that describes the habit as a compound interest of self-improvement, emphasizing that the choices we make repeatedly, our habits shapes our identity, performance, and ultimately our destiny. This perspective encourages shift away from the focusing on only goals or outcome alone, and toward the fine-tuning the everyday behavior that create those results. The core frameworks James Clear develops to explain that how habits form and how can they be changed resolves, and what he calls for the fourth law of behavior changes. According to James Clear, every habit follows a four-step formula: the cue, the trigger that initiates from the behavior, the craving, the motivational force, and the response, the actual habit of the action taken, and the reward, the benefit of the action that gained from the action and that reforms the habit. To build good habits, James Clear emphasizes making each step effective, and the cue should be obvious and the craving attractive, the response easy to perform, and the reward satisfying enough that it encourages repetitions. Conversely, breaking the habits involves the reversing these laws, making cues invisible, craving unattractive, and response difficult, and the reward unsatisfying. The clear and practical blueprint help readers understand why often fail or persist, to provide actionable tool to engineer habits deliberately rather than leaving them to chance. Beyond the mechanics, the Clears underscores the critical importance of identity in habit formations. He argues that true and lasting behavior changes come from not fixing specific goals but from the shifting one's sense of self. Rather than simply aiming to lose weight or write a book, one should focus on embodying the identity of a healthy person or writer. The way to do this is through small wins and repeated behaviors that prove ourselves that we are the kind of person we claim to be. The approach builds internal consistency and motivation because every habit reinforces an identity, and the identity reinforces further habits. Changing habits therefore becomes a process of becoming, not just doing. These insights help explain why motivation alone fails and why systems, the daily routines, and the environments we create are paramount to success. In addition, James Clear highlights the role of environment in shaping habits. He points out that human behavior is easier to influence subtly through the surroundings rather than relying solely on willpower or motivations. By designing the environment so that cues for the good habits are more visible or accessible and cues for bad habits are removed or hidden, and we can nudge behavior in desired directions without conscious struggle. For example, if you want to read more, placing a book on your pillow reading each morning make it visual prompt, and if you want to eat healthier, removing junk food from your kitchen limits temptations. This principle extends to social environment where the people around us set behavior rooms that influence our habits, linking habits to social identity and community. Overall, the atomic habits synthesize psychology, neuroscience, and real-world explains examples into a persuasive argument that transformative power of tiny changes. It provides readers to a rich toolkit and understanding that habits loop, cue, craving, response, and reward. Strategies to stack habits, tips for overcoming common pitfalls, and inspiration for cultivate an identity aligned with the growth. The book message is empowering. Anyone can start small, gain traction, and build momentum toward life altering improvements. Rather than seeking radical transformations, James Clear encourages embracing the power of accumulations, making habits a deliberate practice of continual refinement and thus achieving extraordinary outcomes over time through consistent and tiny choices. James Clear's emphasize the focus on setting lofty goals but developing effective systems and processes that support the desired habits. Success depends more on the daily routines and identity you cultivate rather than one's time achievement. He suggests changing your identity by proving to yourself through small wins that you are the type of person who embodies the habit you want. For example, rather than aiming to run a marathon or becoming a run by consistently running. This book also highlights the importance of environment design as surroundings can powerfully influence behavior implicitly. In conclusion, the Atomic Habits by James Clear present a transformative and accessible approach to personal development that redefines the way we think about the change and success. The book's fundamental insight that massive results are the product of the tiny and consistent improvements offers a refreshing perspective that counters the common misconceptions that change is drastic or sudden upheaval. Instead, James Clear shows that it is the accumulation of small habits practiced regularly and deliberately that leads to the significant and long-lasting transformations. The powerful idea encourages patience and persistence, reminding readers that progress is not always immediately visible but compounds steadily over time like compound interest. Chandler's detailed exploration of the habit formation process from the four laws of behavior change, making habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying, provides a clear and actionable blueprint for creating new point habits and breaking old determined ones. By understanding the psychological and neurological underpinnings of the habits, readers gain the rules necessary to design their behavior in a way that aligns naturally with the goals and values. The scientific and the methodological approach demystifies the behavior changes and make it attainable for anyone willing to put it small, consistent daily effort. Moreover, the book emphasizes on identity-based habits adds a profound dimensions to habit formations. James Clear convincingly argues that lasting changes arise from not merely from what we want to achieve, but from what we believe we are. The shift from outcomes-based goals to identity-based change encourages readers to internalize for aspirations, fostering a deep sense of belonging to a person they wish to become. Through repeated actions that aligns to a new identity, habits become self-reinforcing, creating a virtuous cycle that sustains progress even when motivation fades. In addition, the critical role of environment designs the subtle but powerful influence of our physical and social surroundings is another way. Key takeaway from the Atomic Habits, James Clear highlights that success is easier when environment supports desired behavior by making good habits more accessible and reducing friction against them, while simultaneously making bad habits harder to engage in. This insight shift from the burden from reliance on willpower alone to smarter, proactive engineering of contexts that naturally guide behaviors in the positive directions. Ultimately, Ultimately, the Atomic Habits empowers readers by providing not just motivation but a practical framework backed by research and real-world examples and applications. It teaches that anyone can harness the compounding power of small habits to move steadily and towards their goals regardless of the starting point. By focusing on the system instead of a strict goal, cultivating an identity that supports growth, and optimizing our environments, we lay the groundwork for the continued self-improvements that last as a result of intentional, well-designed habits. This profound shift in mindset and approach makes the Atomic Habits an invaluable guide to anyone seeking to build better, more fulfilled life through the power of tiny and consistent changes. If you have liked this video, then make sure to subscribe and share this video